go ahead and call the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. This is a special meeting for the FY26 budget. Our work session on May 29th, 5:30. Again, the purpose of this meeting is one of the special meetings scheduled for the budget work session. At this time, I'll go ahead and call on Commissioner or Vice Chairwoman Jones to deliver the invocation and lead us in the pledge.
For those that can, please stand. Heavenly Father, we just thank you. We thank you for allowing us to serve and be a voice for our community. We ask that everything be done in decency and order. We also send prayers for those that are serving in our country and for those that have experienced tragedies around the world. Jesus, again, we just want to thank you for allowing us to come together and be the voice of many. May we do things in decency and order and make wise choices and decisions for our community. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we get started, just want to talk a little bit about the process we'll go through so we can set the, kind of set the protocol for the budget work sessions. You're going to see on the agenda that we have some items that we're going to walk through. The intent is to walk through each of the areas. Board commissions will open it up for questions or points on those areas, and then we'll continue to move through, basically moving through pieces of the budget as we go along. The way we built the schedule out is to cover all the days we have planned for our work sessions. I feel confident that as we move through the items, we'll accelerate and we potentially won't need all those days, but we have the option to have those days the way that we have it planned out right now. So you'll see on your agenda that you should have in front of you, we're going to walk through just a high level again. We'll have the manager walk through a few things. Ms. Shaw will walk through some things as well. We'll talk revenues up front, and then we'll talk all of them, including fees and those types of things. The Parks and Rec district, the fire district, and then we'll move into into some of the areas. So our hope is, and again, we're slated for 2 hours tonight, so we'll see where the dialogue gets us to tonight. But I want to be respectful of people's time. But I think we'll be able to get through a lot of this, and then we'll begin to move into the sections like general government, public safety, human services will be our goal for tonight, and we've broken it into different areas, basically the way the budget is laid out. We'll go through. I would ask that the board keep I know people probably have a lot of questions about certain things, and I would ask that we keep our questions specific to the items that we are covering at that time. The staff, as always, will answer the questions they can answer. If they have to come back, they'll bring those questions back to us before our next meeting and provide those back to us, so we'll have them hopefully at least a day in advance of the next meeting, but they can bring those back to the following meeting. But again, we want to kind of stay but we want to stay focused on the items that are in front of us. So if we're not talking about IT at that time, let's keep our questions to whatever the topic is, I would ask. And that's the way I'll try to guide the meeting. Anybody have any concerns or questions on the process? All right, thank you. We will go ahead and kick it off, and we'll look at kind of the key objectives. County Manager Greer.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Debbie, Commissioners. Tonight at this work session, we have a general presentation that we'd like to go through that has, and we'll bring it up on the screen, of each of the key items on this agenda, and we'll go through it and answer the time and what the impacts that we have on the county, that we keep the budget flat as much as possible, no increase beyond probably 2.5% at the time that was inflation. As a result of that, For only one department, I would say that we, and there's a correlation between one, public safety and public health, where there's an increase that directly results for each one. I think public safety had, I know the number, 7.3% increase over last year's budget, and that's because of some particular initiatives that we wanted to make sure to address a need that the sheriff office had. But outside of that, if you take out that amount and take out the other thing directly correlated in public health, the budget would have only increased approximately 1.75%. So that would have taken off approximately 1.25% off of the increase of the budget. The budget would have been 1.7% increase, but I thought those programs were vastly needed in order to help the sheriff department and help public health. So I'll turn it over to Deborah Shaw, Director of Budget and Performance, and we're answering your questions as we go through the presentation that she has, and hopefully we will be able to answer all the questions. Deborah, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Welcome to our first budget work session regarding the FY26 recommended budget. In the budget development process, 5 objectives were identified. The first objective was funding in accordance with the board's new priorities and strategic plan. The 7 strategic priorities were enhancing health and wellness, ensure a safe community for our residents, fostering economic growth, encouraging quality development and smart growth, champion responsive, transparent government, providing cultural and recreational opportunities, and supporting a high-performance education system. These objectives were, the other 4 remaining objectives were a revenue-neutral tax rate for the general fund, efficient fee changes, balancing the budget by staying within our means, and current and future economic conditions. These objectives were influenced by inflation, increased demands for services, and uncertainties at the federal level. The total expenditures across all funds are a little over $600 million. For this work session, the focus will be on some of the general fund, and it is recommended budget of a little over $400 million, a 3% increase over the FY 2025 adopted budget. This budget was not only a year of revaluation, but also a year with a change in the methodology of allocating sales tax revenue. As you can see from the screen, these are the revenues for the general fund. Our biggest revenue source is the ad valorem and sales tax. What is revenue neutral and how is it calculated? The worksheet provided from the Local Government Commission was utilized in calculating the revenue neutral tax rate. In a property revaluation year, the North Carolina General Statute 159.11e requires local governments to calculate the revenue neutral property tax rate for comparative purposes. The first step was to determine a rate that would produce revenues equal to those produced for the current fiscal year, the tax levy. For the years 2017-18 through 23-24, these numbers came from the audit. These are actual numbers. For the 24-25, we had to determine where we would end in values by the end of the year. For 25-26, we used the valuation numbers provided by the tax department for motor vehicles and used to determine the equivalent levy. Mr. Utley brought that to y'all, and it was $37.8 million, and this includes an appeal factor of 7%, which is approximately $2.4 billion that's being withheld off those values. We applied a growth factor of 1.77. The tax rate to produce the equivalent levy is 54.95 cents, but revenue neutral tax rate is to include, for the budget ordinance, is adjusted for growth, and that's 55.93. The graph above illustrates the historical trend of ad valorem revenue. The FY26 recommended budget for ad valorem and motor vehicle taxes are projected to be a little over $211 million. Property taxes were calculated based on the updated numbers provided by the tax department. For the recommended budget, the report dated April the 10th of 2025 was utilized with the values at approximately $37.9 billion. Again, the same amount for appeals has been included in this calculation. You would take this number multiplied by the revenue neutral tax rate to arrive at what the tax levy would be. However, that figure gives you a 100% calculation, and we never collect 100%. Per statute, you can only budget at the collection rate of the prior year's actual collections. In this instance, is FY24. The collection rate utilized was 99.42%, multiplied by approximately $212 million to arrive at approximately a little over $211 million. Sales tax and equalization. The FY 2026 recommended budget marks the first year in a change in the methodology used to allocate sales tax revenue. As a result of this transition, the county anticipated a net increase of approximately $8.9 million in general fund and sales tax revenues for FY 2026. However, if you look at a year-over-year comparison of sales tax revenue, which can be found in page 31 of the recommended book, this number looks like a huge windfall. However, previously revenue allocations were influenced by an interlocal agreement, the equalization, between the county and the municipalities. Under this agreement, a portion of the revenue collected was categorized as unrestricted revenue, which is found also on page 31. Sales tax growth continues to slow, with actual collections for FY24 reflecting a modest 0.75% increase over FY23 for Cumberland County. Due to economic conditions, a growth factor was not placed on sales tax for FY 2026. FY26 will also be the first year that the Fire Protection Service District and the County Recreation District will receive sales tax. Let me remind everyone that sales tax is an estimate and would only be distributed once it's been received by the county. For budgeting purposes, we are estimating $3.8 million in sales tax for the Fire Protection Service District and an estimated $1.4 million in County Recreation District. Do you want me to continue on? That was kind of the wrap up on the major revenue sources.
Let's see if Ms. Schaufel can, before we move to fees, if there's questions on the revenue, property side as well as the sales tax, understanding that we're moving into different calculation issues. Commissioners, questions on the revenue side? Vice Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you repeat what the difference was? You stated that, I know it's the new formula calculation, the difference in the percentage from this rate to comparison of last year, which was the 2025 fiscal budget. What was the difference in that, please? Can you say that again?
The difference between the FY24, the growth factor was only 0.75. Coming into FY25, when we were beginning to build this budget, it was only .35, so everything has been flat for FY, as far as growth for sales tax. A lot of that is a lot of refunds that have not been, that were catching up being processed. Nonprofits is allowed to submit for refunds to the Department of Revenue, and there could be a timing difference. I can tell you in September and October, there was 1 month compared to the prior year, we were negative 12.6. We had huge refunds coming through, and that affects our sales tax.
Thank you. That was going to be my next question.
Okay.
What was the reason behind it? So it was because of the refunds?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that answers my...
And slow growth. Inflation, people shifting their patterns, their buying patterns.
That was my only question. Thank you for answering that.
Commissioners, any other questions on the revenue side? Commissioner Tyson, you recognize.
Thank you. So, Ms. Shaw, thank you for that presentation. One quick note, and I just want to make sure I understand as well, on the sales tax in particular. Notice in our current adopted budget in 25, it was showing that FY24 actually showed a decrease of 3.1% in the actual, and that the FY 2024 projection at that time was still 0.7. So it's fair to say that the sales tax seems to me is kind of stabilized, and that growth is not, that we're projecting is really kind of in trend with what we've seen.
Right. I would call this pre-pandemic levels. That's what I would classify this, where we're going back to the norm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioners, anything else? Okay.
Okay. The fee changes pertaining to the general revenue are located on page 43 of the recommended document. Let me get there, please. Per the budget ordinance in section 3, fee schedules, changes as fees are presented during the budget work session will be incorporated into the fee schedule shown within the reference section of the adopted book. The fees that were brought forth, some of these have already been, all of these have been seen in the Finance Committee or the library. The overall impact is just maybe $350, right, Faith? Planning and inspections, it was a description change. Location services. This is, we put a factor of 15% for inflation for the materials to build signs. The reason why is last year we did not do any increase. So we're really playing catch up with inflation, the cost of materials to build these signs. And then public health. This is required to review the fee schedules annually and adjust based on the Medicaid and Medicare rates, the cost to perform services, cost to purchase vaccines, private insurance companies, and rates charged by other health departments in considerations of the impact to the uninsured citizens. Those are all the fee changes pertaining to the general fund. And again, they're referenced on page 43 and 44 of your recommended book. If I had placed those in here, you would not have been able to read them.
Sure.
Okay?
Any questions on the fees? Commissioners, any questions on the fees?
No.
On the public health side,
Yes.
dramatic increase on a lot of the current fees. Rationality behind that is just set off of the Medicaid, Medicare.
It's Medicaid and Medicare rates. And those are usually, they're adopted by their board first. I think they're presented, I'm sure these have already been presented to their board, and then they flow through the budget process.
Yeah, these are presented in February, then they come to us as part of the budget presentation. Well, preparation of the budget, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Go ahead, Michelle.
Okay. The FY26 recommended budget keeps the current rate of 15 cents for the fire district and 5 cents for the county recreation district. As you can see from the county recreation fund is a special revenue fund that manages the collection of taxes levied dedicated to parks and recreation. The county sets the recreation tax for Falcon, Godwin, Linden.
Okay.
Oh, I'm not.
This is, we prepared.
Oh, okay.
The county sets the recreation tax for Falcon, Godwin, Linden, Spring Lake, Stedman, Wade, and the other unincorporated areas of the county. Fayetteville, Hope Mills, Eastover, E-Town Vander all set their own rates. As a result of the revaluation values increase from approximately $7 billion to $12 billion, leading to a revenue-neutral tax rate of 0.03. The county has a single consolidated fire tax district to provide fire prevention services to the unincorporated areas of the county. As a result of the revaluation, values increased from approximately $7 million to $11 million, leading to a revenue-neutral tax rate of 9.46 cents. To address disparities in the funding capacity, low-wealth districts will continue to receive the additional support funded by an allocation of 1.25 cents per $100 of value. The remaining 3.75 cents per $100 value will be distributed through various supplemental mechanisms, including performance incentive grants and additional supplements. These may be tied to factors such as service demands, operational needs, or strategic priorities. In the 15 cents, it's collected. 10 cents is contracted to the various fire departments. So what we did was take an average, and it came out to the 9.46. Okay?
Let's talk to Parks and Rec
Okay.
and fire districts. I'll open that up for questions. Commissioner Tyson, your recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If the board were to adopt the proposed for the fire districts, did y'all do an analysis to see if any of those low-wealth fire departments that currently qualify would move out of that status?
Yes, we're talking with Chief Johnson about that. We have a preliminary calculation. We'll have to go back and, if approved by the commissioners, we'll have to go back and reallocate that. I'm pretty sure, based on the valuations, that some of them will, more right now, I don't want to say it because the rate has not been adopted, but there'll be a couple of them move out of the low wealth.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman. So as a side of that, Ms. Charlotte, you mentioned that a portion of that revenue is going to go towards performance metrics. And would some of those metrics be things like if a department staffing 2 stations, making sure that the staffing is equal between the stations, for example, would that be something that could be an incentive?
Yes, and there's some other incentives, like we have some requirements to have certain trainings, go to certain seminars, and Chief Johnson and I have talked about those metrics being part of that, because sometimes we have some stations or some fire departments that don't meet all the metrics as far as the required training and or seminars.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions on the Parks and Rec and the fire? Commissioner Fairclough.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Manager, I know when we, over the years, we're talking about moving back to the ad valorem method, we developed various matrices to show which units of taxation we're going to get, increases, decreases, and so forth. Do we have an updated, you may have that somewhere in the literature, I haven't had a chance to review it yet, but is that somewhere in here that we can,
Not in this presentation, but we can bring it back for you.
I'd like to see that, because I know it was showing kind of who was affected by which various items, and I know it was quite a calculation, but if we've got an updated version of it at some point, I would like to see that sometime during this process.
Will do.
Commissioner Fairclough, what was that matrix?
It showed the various taxing authorities and how they were affected by the sales tax, and it's even though they don't levy a tax, they're still considered a taxing authority. So the school system was affected by the sales tax. It was an increase before.
Oh, we do have that one. It was in the presentation last Thursday, but we'll send it to you.
It's not in some of the literature here. It's not.
No, it's not in the.
She's got the little,
He's got the deck from last week,
he's got the,
from Thursday, from your
Yeah, I'll
presentation.
show it to you.
Have I got it? Okay.
It's
Okay.
in
I'll
there.
find it if it's in here. Thank you. That's all I was asking.
Yeah, it's in there.
Anything else, Commissioner Fairclough?
That's okay.
Commissioner Patel?
Thank you. I do have a question on the Parks and Rec side. So keeping the rate the same at 5 cents and not looking at the neutral rate. I guess one, what was the thought process or methodology behind that? And reason I'm asking is depending on which way we do move forward with handling county assets for Parks and Recs, the historical spending on our assets that we received from the city a few months back showed that we were spending currently, basically we spent 1 year's worth over 9 years, so 1 year's worth of tax revenue over 9 years. So if we're increasing the total revenue from there, where is it going to be allocated, or do you have a plan on that right now?
We would devise a plan for that. I would say as we move forward with the Parks and Rec agreement with the City of Fayetteville, one of the things that we are going to advocate from the county's perspective is that we basically maintain, not so much maintain, but we approve and bring forward to you all of the projects that will be funded with the additional amounts of funding we have. One of the things we looked at when we recommended to leave the rate the same is that we're starting to see several new developments in the northern part of the county and unincorporated areas. And so with those new developments, we're going to have the park amenities for those areas. And we want to get in front of it before we start having to address it on the back end. And by this, I think it's $1,400,613.84. We can start using that funding to, like, if someone needs a splash pad, Cedar Creek wants the community center, Godwin probably is going to need a new park. We can use that funding for that. And then also we'll work with the city to make sure that whatever those initiatives are brought forward for you all's approval first, but we'll have the funding to cash fund that instead of having to deal with huge debt for those things.
Commissioner Patel, anything else? Commissioner Tyson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just for clarification, Mr. Manager, with this additional increase, well, and I guess we'll step back a second. Our current agreement with the City of Fayetteville, does it call for us to give a certain dollar amount of what we collect? Does it call for us to give the total amount of what we collect? Do we have an option where we could give the same amount that we did last year and set some of those funds aside for capital projects that we can approve one by one?
Yeah, we set aside money for capital every year. I have to go back through the new agreement that we're trying to work through, but there's a certain percentage that it goes to capital. It's been about $500,000 a year, but we want to increase that amount moving forward.
So just to be clear, but we could retain those funds, not advance them, and this board would then have the purview to review those projects and not fund those until after they're approved.
Correct.
Thank you.
And that's part of the new agreement also.
Commissioner Adams recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I would tell you, the way we've done it kind of in the past is that Mike Gibson and the city have went to each one of the municipalities and talked to them, and then brought it back to this board, and this board voted on it. The city didn't just necessarily do it. So after conversations with each one of those entities, it was brought back to this board. And that's why some people got a splash pad, Stedman got the baseball. And so, because that's what their community wanted after having those conversations. And they brought it back to the county board. Thank you, Commissioner.
Now I understand,
You're recognized, Commissioner Council.
I'm sorry.
All right.
I understand better. I heard part of their meeting on, the city's meeting on TV. And I didn't quite understand all of it. Now it fits. Okay, that was today. I don't know what time it was. Why was I looking at television at that time?
They had their budget work session this afternoon from 3 to 5. Commissioner Council, anything else? Good? Are you good?
I'm fine. I'm gonna stop talking.
You talk all you want.
No, you were good.
So, one comment, well, a question first. On the fire side, the fire tax district, that is we're applying the new formula. I know we're talking about some of the criteria, but that's a new formula that you and Chief Johnson, with input from the fire districts, have worked through.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. And if the rate is approved,
Correct.
then we'll have to firm that up
Readjust
and readjust it.
Understand. Thank you. And then just a comment, so we will have Parks and Rec come brief this body as part of this process. We're looking to get them scheduled in so we can see what they currently have scheduled or what they're recommending against the projected for maintenance and capital. So we're hoping to have them on the 5th if we get that locked in. Continue, Ms. Shaw.
Now we're going to turn our attentions to some of the expenditures. We took $1. If you take $1, 20% is allocated to public safety, 33% to human services, excuse me. General government is 15%, education 27%, 2% to economic and physical development, and 3% to cultural and recreation. As you can see from the general government other, 2.7% was the change overall regarding the budget. Some highlights was the governing bodies increased 14.6% for supplemental fringe benefits and a transfer of $15,000 for the board members' telephones that were previously charged to PIO. We're just trying to get it into the right organizations now so that we can get a true cost of each department. Innovation and Technology Services had an increase due to 3 new positions, software, computer software contracts, and contracted services. The Budget and Performance Department had increases due to additional salaries and benefits, travel, and training costs. Board of Elections increase is due to the expenditures associated with the municipal election. I'll be more than happy to answer any additional questions.
We'll break and ask questions around general government. Commissioners, questions on general government? Commissioner Patel.
I have a quick question. What's the standard of how the Board of Elections expenses work on off years for this year, for example, for municipal elections? Do we have to pay for one early voting site, and then if there were additional sites, how does that work?
We'll have to give you a little bit more detailed schedule on that, but generally when there's a municipal election, the cost is a little bit lower, but when we have like a presidential election, it's higher, for lack of a better term. We have to cover in the early voting sites and all of those. So all of that is encompassed in there, and so you'll see a fluctuation because of the number of sites and This year, there was a fluctuation because we had some different regulations that we had to follow as far as keeping sites open. And then also getting the votes in at a particular time caused us to incur some overtime for the posters.
So for municipal elections, if the municipality, so let's say City of Fayetteville, for example, decides that they want, 2 or 3 early voting sites, do we burden the cost or do they
Go ahead, Sally.
They reimburse.
They reimburse.
Yes.
I was going to say we charge them, but
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, other questions? Vice Chairman Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You go back to the screen, you should have looked at it quicker. It was stating, I think, 3% when it comes to, I think it said, go back again, go back to that.
The dollar.
Come up some. There
The
was
dollar
something
one.
about- I think it was
Oh, the
like
dollar, I'm
Economic
sorry.
development percentage. Slow down, slow
Oh,
down.
there.
Okay. Yes, this economic and physical development, what areas, I guess, the criteria, subcategories, that 2%, what does that cover?
We're going to be going over that in just a minute, but planning,
okay. I guess I'm
planning and location, cooperative extension, soil and water.
Okay.
Anything else for general government?
Okay.
And real quick, as we're walking through these, just for clarity, and there's people streaming online as well, when you look at these expenditures, explain what we're looking at on expenditures. This isn't a capital investment. This is explain what this expenditure would be.
This, included in this number is the salaries and benefits, the operating costs, and a capital outlay item that would reside within the department, not a major capital, which would be in the capital investment fund. This is pretty much what it takes to operate that department.
All right, go ahead and move forward.
Next, okay, I'm sorry.
travel, supplies, that's it.
Yes, and just clarifying it for the
Next is public safety is composed of the following departments. Again, there was a 7.3% increase overall when you look at what's considered public safety. As noted in the county manager's message, a $3,000 increase has been applied to the entry-level salaries for detention officers and deputy sheriff positions, extending through the ranks of lieutenants. The total cost for this was a little over $1.7 million.
I know Commissioner Tyson has a question on public safety. Commissioner Tyson, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in our FY25 current, we had 621 FTEs that were included in that budget. Within that number, how many FTEs are we funding?
I can get someone to look that up and get back with you.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank
Will
you.
you look that up, yeah? Or whoever has your,
I have a question for her. Are you referring to how many within that, from the detention center, entry level, deputy sheriff, up until lieutenant, they're funding with that?
Total full-time equivalent
Total
positions.
full-time just for sheriff's office?
Yes,
or do you
ma'am.
want detention center
You want
included?
all?
Yeah, that would be.
Everything that would be included? Okay, all right.
Anything else, Commissioner Tyson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I was going to ask the inverse of that question, so I guess I'll have it if I interpolate, right? In other words, we're looking at vacancies, which is the opposite of really what you asked. Okay, I'm good.
I will say this, we do back a percentage of the COLA, all of the potential COLA and 401 on the back of vacancies, and I believe that will be brought forth in a future budget work session.
Vice Chairman Jones, you
Wait a
recognize.
minute, I can't look both ways.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And the same.
So just for our listening audience, also those out there, since we're discussing salaries of the Sheriff's Department detention, What is the percentage rate? There has been an increase for this year versus last year, though. I'm not talking about how many officers are hired or retired, but has there been an increase within pay that's been provided for sheriffs and for detention officers? And if so, what's the estimate, like percentage of that from last year to this year? If you're an officer coming in this year, what's the pay differentiation than what you would have got offered if you were on the force in 2025?
Okay, the entry level for a new officer coming in for this year.
That way I can see the percentage rate if it was either higher or maintained or what. Yeah, 2025 first versus this year. Maybe that might make it simpler for the listening audience.
So it's 50,750.
50,000 last year, 2025, and what is it for this year?
It's for this year coming, including the $3,000, 53,750 would be the entry level.
That's in the recommended budget, as long as it's adopted.
If it's
Yeah,
adopted,
yeah.
it would be a $3,000 increase for the lower entry just coming in.
Yes, ma'am.
And then across the board, if you already have experience, they too, if adopted, would get a raise, is what I'm trying to figure out.
They still get that $3,000.
Okay,
Up through lieutenants.
up to
In
lieutenant.
detention center and in sheriff's office.
Okay, thank you.
And the reason why only through lieutenants is because there's not as much of a vacancy issue above lieutenants.
That's all, thank you.
Commissioner Vitale.
So the $3,000 increase for starting salaries that'll be applied if someone's already working as a law enforcement agent or for the sheriff's office that are making underneath that, how would they be compensated?
A part of it, we may adjust their salaries so equity, so we won't have compression. So that's part built in also, the compression for those salaries for the new employees, for the existing employees, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tyson, your recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And then I guess as a follow-up to that, if we could be provided with, what the average new positions that have been filled, let's say for the last 2 fiscal years, so we know, kind of that rate of attrition. I mean, that would be nice to have on a lot of our departments, but I'll keep it germane to the sheriff's office here. That would be useful information to kind of know what that historical trend is, and then have the FTEs that are included in the proposed budget.
We will get that for you. I can speak that in prior years when we've always went through and looked at public safety, we've increased and there's still vacancies, but we're hoping we're getting closer, we're getting more competitive to surrounding counties.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I think at one point one of the items we'll walk through is the personnel and compensation that speaks to the COLAs, that speaks to the benefits, staffing levels, and those kinds of things. And we'll look at it in totality by department. Anything else?
Just last question for public safety. For animal services, looking at what we're budgeting 4.8 million, relative to the amount of emails that we get for animal control services, and I know there's a staffing issue, but is there also a financing issue that could help out that department, or it seems like it's funded pretty well for the amount of complaints we get?
Yeah, one who's had great experience with animal services in the past, I would just say that's on par with being a detention officer. The job itself is a very detailed, tedious, and stressful job. And so it's kind of hard at times, although we have a budget, it's hard to get people in those positions. It's always, so we leave the budget a particular amount because we have not so many vacancies, but we have a rotation of staff members because of the difficulty of the position. Now, what we are experiencing is in some of these positions, we can't get enough people in for animal control, and I think that's where you see most of the calls from. and the size and complexity of the county, without enough animal control officers, it's kind of hard to address all of the rural parts of the county. And so that's what we're trying to strategize and deal with right now, is the animal control more than anything else. Once again, the shelter is not as bad, but the county being the size that it is and the number of animal control officers, we don't have enough for the size of the county that we are.
Vice Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is not a question as it is a comment. I would like to say, and for those that are listening, I do appreciate when you did come aboard. I don't know if it was a year or two. It's been a while. I don't want to get my dates mixed up. But Mr. Greer, you did an exceptional job. You were challenged by the board to find out information in regards to overall what counties are paying to be, so that we could be competitive. And I do remember at that time, vacancies have went down, although we do struggle with the same as all counties in North Carolina, throughout the state, as well as other throughout the nation, that an excellent job was done when you provided us information to be more competitive within around counties such as Greensboro and as well as Charlotte. And I can say myself, when talking to those that work in our human resource department and even the community, I find that we do still, of course, have openings, but we have far less vacancies due to the fact that Cumberland County is more competitive now, that we had that major peak in salaries, to include that of the commissioners getting an increase. So we do appreciate that greatly, as I'm sure the other county employees do as well.
Anything else, Vice Chairman?
That's all.
Quick question on the treatment courts. You have, are those falling under, and we've made some adjustments moving forward with the pilot program, so those falling under Justice Services, and we've got Veterans Treatment Court popped out.
The adult treatment court, that is a grant, and of
$249,000.
249,900. That is, if we get the grant, the expenses have to be the same. That was a grant that we have received, so we budget the revenue, we have to budget the expenditures.
Okay, and so under, what's contained under Justice
Services, okay? The Justice Services had an increase due to the new programs and grant-funded positions, such as the North Carolina Department Adult Correction Reentry Program. It's a comprehensive initiative aimed at improving post-relief outcomes for individuals transitioning from incarceration. A position was also moved to the county managers, from the county manager's budget to Justice Services for the administrative personnel and Justice Services.
So my question is when we look at the START program, and there were certain treatment courts, whether they're grant funded or are funded, general fund, is this where we're capturing the expenses for those treatment courts not listed, like the mental health court and a couple of the other ones?
Those are in special revenue funds. Because it's
Expenses?
dedicated, the revenues and expenses. What were you going to say, Gatti?
The START program that you're talking about, it will fall under public safety, but that one is not on here yet because we all just approved that one.
Okay.
So it is not shown.
That would be a reconciliation or reappropriation, depending on, we've got to work with the Justice Services Director to find out about the hiring.
And you mentioned the reentry program. That's been moved under, that program's under Justice Services. Okay. Vice Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess that was going to be one of my questions, because when I think of specialty courts, I guess the way it's put in categories, but my understanding, because I'm just going to do it the simplified way, is specialty courts as far as veteran treatment court, human traffic court, mental health court, and then they have the teen court. So when I didn't see some of those listed, are you stating that they're in another particular area or category that I will see later?
Yes. When it will be another work session where we're going over all the other funds, because they're dedicated for a special purpose by the chart of accounts that comes, Robin or Clarence, the special revenue funds.
Yeah, the special revenue funds are multi-year funds mostly, And so they're in a different fund
200 series.
200 series.
And I do have one more follow-up question. In reference to Veteran Treatment Court, since this states, you stated this is a grant, so I would like to know how long does that grant last, number one, and number two, are we not, from our general funding or public safety, being able to put any other money other than that grant into the Veterans Treatment Court, or will I see that Veteran Treatment Court money allocated in the other specialty area that we're talking about? Like, is this all the money, what I'm stating, basically making it
On
simple?
Veterans Treatment
For veteran
Court.
treatment, or will veteran treatment, because when we speak of specialty courts, that is considered a specialty treatment, so will that be over at the other category as well, with other fundings that I will see? Or is this all that's being invested in the Veteran Treatment Court? Or will it show up in the other area as well?
That's all that's being shown in this one because they have their VJAs like over a 4-year period.
Right.
So with that, we'll do a reappropriation next year, whatever funding they didn't show this year, they didn't use, it'll show up for next year as a revised. But they do have more funding, but it's cut out over a 4-year period.
Okay, that was what my concern, so we just don't see it. I wanted to be clear of that. Okay, thank you, that's all.
Commissioner Tyson, do you have something else?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm good.
Anyone else? One more before we
Okay.
move past public safety. Always a fun topic this past year. SRO funding,
Okay.
where is that, how is that captured?
School law enforcement.
Okay.
Local.
And that's where the traffic control officers that the county does have and the SROs are there, or in that organization.
Just for clarity, again, we have a listening audience.
Okay.
It all flows through out to, how does it flow? How do those expenses flow out? For example, now that Hope Mills and City of Fayetteville are doing their own SROs.
Okay, we're responsible for the counties, and the city is responsible for, anybody within the city limits is responsible for their own municipality. We are, this is the salaries, the benefits, what it takes to, their vehicle gas to get them to these schools. We do have them, I believe, in every school currently. We can verify that before school got out. I believe we have one stationed at every school.
So this is covering just the areas that we cover.
The unincorporated area or non-city limits.
Just want to be clear on that. I've got Vice Chairman Jones, and then we'll go to Chairman or Commissioner Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So speaking of SROs, when you say covering all of that, does that mean high school and junior high for our listening audience and for clarification for parents and other concerned individuals that have students?
Elementary, middle, and high school.
Okay, elementary and high school to include junior high or now?
Middle school, yes.
Middle
yes,
school,
ma'am.
okay. How many SROs at each school?
I believe one, but
Depends
we
on
can
if
verify.
elementary is one, or they may go through 1 or 2 schools. Middle schools, they try to have 2, at least 1, and then at the high school, there's at least 2.
And are we covering cross guards? There was an issue going on with cross
Yeah, the
guards.
crossing guards, we have those too.
Okay, great.
Commissioner Adams.
When they did that though, does this include what the sheriff did last year? He did Spring Lake, so is he still doing Spring Lake going
Yes, he is.
forward?
Yes.
So it is one municipality. So
Right, I'm
I just
sorry.
want to put
Yes.
that on the table. There is one municipality that's within that. I mean,
You are correct.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
A way to say it would be everything that Sheriff Wright is covering, which would be unincorporated areas in Spring Lake. You're not covering Hope Mills.
Right, just that one.
Right.
It's just that one.
Okay.
But I just wanted to make sure.
Is that Spring Lake? Yeah, he's covering Spring Lake, just not Hope Mills
In favor. Or favor.
or Fayetteville.
Let's go ahead. No more questions.
Okay. Now we have economic and physical development. And as you can see from the slide, these are the departments that make up the economic and physical development. The overall increase is 1.1% from the FY25 adopted budget. The planning department reflects a 7.2% increase, primarily due to an increase in the Intergov software contract renewal and the inclusion of funding for consolidating and update development ordinances. Engineering is also reflecting an increase due to increased salaries and benefits and an increase for the building security contracted services. The North Carolina Cooperative Extension Program reflects an increase due to the additional support from programs and fees. This category, what they collect, like 4-H, they spend. The Soil Conservation District has a decrease due to the completion of the Emergency Watershed Protection Grant. And the Soil Conservation Cost Share Program reflects an increase due to the reclassification of the soil and water conservation position to include new supervisory duties. Only one employee is budgeted in this cost center, so it skews the numbers, makes it a higher percentage. The Economic Physical Development Cost Center reflects a $10,000 increase in the North Carolina Southeastern Partnership membership dues.
Commissioners, questions or comments on this? Commissioner Adams?
Can I ask a question? Because we do have hurricanes and stuff. Do we have any money that cleans up the streams, rockfish and all of those out at, and where is that? Is that in this or? Because part of the problem we had with the hurricane out with Locks Creek is when it came down Rockfish, we had trees and everything out in there and the water didn't have anywhere to go, so it went over its banks. So I don't know if it's in this.
Over the banks.
Over the banks.
Okay.
It's in this, because I know we got some money to do the one out at Methodist from the state. But do we have anywhere to do a continuous stream cleanup, I guess, stream?
So this wrapped up the funding that we had from Matthew Lawrence, and then we were notified after the budget had been, the recommended budget had been completed, that we are eligible for over $1 million in EWP, but that's only a 75%. We have to come up with the 25% match.
Which is approximately $411,000. I was going to be bringing that to the Finance Committee.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was just wondering if it was in this budget to be able to do that. Okay.
We just got the award after the budget.
Because we did apply with the damage based on the damages from Hurricane Debbie.
And to Commissioner Adams' point, where will that fall?
It would fall with the Soil Conservation
Soil conservation.
District.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I just want to make sure we're all seeing it the same way. It's not in some special fund somewhere or something like that.
No, it's,
No, that's okay.
Other questions on economic and physical development? Commissioner Tyson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So under economic physical development, and I see you put the note in here, was an increase in dues. I noticed in the 25, it showed it was actual was 42. We're projecting 30. Our adopted last year was 20. Walk us through kind of the methodology between those three numbers and how you came to that recommendation of 30.
Can someone bring up the economic physical development on You got it?
Yeah, it's the membership to belong to the NC Southeastern Partnership. So that's the membership cost. It
What was the-
increased this year by 10,000
What was in the prior years? I think what he's asking.
prior year.
You're probably looking at 24.
20,000.
Well, and just for clarification, there was a big change, but then when you look at the amount that was budgeted last year, the 20, our year-end projection for FY25 was still 42. So if we're going to 30, does that mean we're going to be back at 42 on our actual?
No, can you tell me what the revised budget was? This is the adopted budget. There was a revision that would have came through to the board, and I just need to know what that is.
25,000 was the revised.
What was that for? No, I don't. Go ahead, Gaffney.
It was 42,493. That was our revised for 25. The Southeast Partnership is $25,000 for 25. And then we also have the capital outlay improvement for the Sand Hills Road project. That was
Sand Hills
$700,000.
That's right. That's right.
So it'd be fair to say that's a one-time expenditure?
One time.
One time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Chairman.
didn't forget that.
Vice Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you elaborate for me and discuss somewhat, if you go down to the line that says public utilities and the breakdown of how that came about from last year to this year and what that covers? So, I mean, it's kind of, I want to make sure that you can talk a little bit about that. Public utilities?
Public Utilities is a one-person show, and it's her salary with benefits and also the operating expenses to go out there and look after Norcrest, Kelly Hills,
Our water district.
water districts.
And so there's just been a slight increase, basically?
Yeah, and it's probably because the COLA and 401K is in there.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, commissioners? Commissioner Patel?
I wanted to know, what's the 7% plus increase for the planning department? What was driving that?
The InterGov software contract renewal, which was approximately $89,000, and then updating the development ordinance, we placed a budget of $75,000.
UDO.
UDO.
Go ahead. And then, I don't know if I'm skipping ahead to the personnel, but I did want to ask, from the MPO side, they had requested more staff, and I know there was an issue with funding there, but since it is a federally funded department, would their staff be in our budget, or would it be separate?
That would be in all funds summary and not within the general fund. And we will be covering that.
Thank you. So, and I know we're going to get into the manning, but when we look at, so water and sewer department is basically, that's our manning of what we're currently doing. Based on strategic plan and priority of this board, based on the strategic plan and where we're moving with public utility as well as water and sewer, should we don't see any expansion there. And again, I don't want to get too far into the personnel side, but why wouldn't we see growth in those two lines?
Because we need to decide on the projects that and how we need to move forward in the funding. Once we get that approved and move forward and bring that forth to the board, we'll probably need to expand personnel after that. But right now, based on what we currently have in our portfolio for water districts and some of the contracts we have, we don't have a need for additional personnel. But I could see in the future, probably with fiscal year 2027, we probably will need to expand that scope of personnel for public utilities.
And I know the board's going to be getting an update on the direction and a lot of the actions that have been happening in those two areas here in June. So, okay, last under economic development or under economic incentives, that's our exposure that's out there.
Yes.
That's our cost each.
Yes, our projected cost each year.
And then where are we capturing our partnership with the city for FCEDC?
That is in general government other.
General government other?
Yes.
Yeah, up under, we contribute $480,000 per year. Am I correct? I'm going off the top of my head. I believe it's in 1014195, if someone can verify that.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, we just can't see through the numbers here.
Right.
So kind of have to maybe ask some stupid questions.
No question.
I just want to know where that's captured. Commissioner Adams.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman, to your question. No, I just need to know where it's captured, because when we sell property or do whatever, where's that captured? Those funds? Because we've sold property that we've capped for economic development, we need to buy something else, so I'm just trying to figure out where
From a
that
county
capped.
perspective, that
Yes.
would be in the revenue side,
Okay.
under miscellaneous,
What page is that?
page 31,
Okay.
under miscellaneous. Because it's a sell of land, sell of an asset, and that's where we record that from.
And there has been a time before when the board instructed us to put it to capital investment.
For capital investment.
It's always brought to the board.
But it's restricted for economic development, because I think that's what, okay.
We'll have it, because on the balance sheet, we don't hide that part of the budget. But at the end of the year, you'll see there's a restricted fund balance for economic development, or assigned fund balance for economic development. And that's where those funds go if it's sold for that purpose.
So I just want to, we're going in the same direction, Commissioner Adams. I just want to make sure we're capturing, because based on the direction we're going, any sales are getting captured back, and we're restricting that. We're restricting those funds to be able to use for future purchases.
Yes.
And I'm trying to stay germane to what we're talking about, but if we want to create additional capacity there, then that's going to go into special funds, correct? If I'm trying to create, if we're trying to create additional capital, so for example, let's just say we've got $100,000 based on sale proceeds that are captured that we can use for further economic, we need to buy additional land and position to do X. If the board chooses to add dollars to that capital, to that fund, I'm calling it a fund, that's going to be in special.
There'd be restricted fund balance for that.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Sorry, that's a little off topic, but I just wanted to.
Currently, we have it as a signed fund balance, so that would be, but it's still the same thing as being restricted.
All right. Anything else on this item? Okay, Ms. Shaw, thank you.
Human Services. The Health Department includes programs such as doulas, and we funded $150,000, and maternal health, $76,000, and these two are funded with the Health Department's fund balance of maternal health. Healthy Conversations is included in the Health Department's general department at $187,700. Connected Care is a little over $1.3 million, and the Uber transportation is $50,000. The Detention Center Health Program saw an increase of 22.1% because of the contract increase with WellPath for inmates' health, consisting of healthcare services and staffing enhancements.
And you remember when we first started, I said there's a direct correlation between two programs? Well, due to the number of individuals that we have at the detention center, the increased cost in the health insurance, and then you can see the correlation with not having the detention officers. So those go hand in hand, and that's the reason why we're trying to make sure that the sheriff, and talking with him, he has enough detention officers, because we're having more people in the detention center. That's driving up the healthcare costs. So we have to have that offset so we can try to get this cost down and manage it. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. The Care Coordination for Children saw an increase of 10.6%, and this program is state and Medicaid funded. The Medicaid portion comes from the prepared health plans, paying $4.56 per month per member. The Medicaid enrollees is 0 to 5 years old. This is an organization, again, where the revenues and expenditures must balance. WIC, which is Women, Infant, and Children's Services, had an increase of 7.3%, and this is mainly due to the COLA and the 401k increases. Community Transformation Grant has an increase of 67.4%. This program uses federal funds and funds from the Jewel settlement to balance to the revenues and expenditures. I'll answer any other questions.
Commissioner Adams.
He had his hand up first, that's fine.
Commissioner Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when we look under the mental health others category?
Yes.
We see that the adopted budget for 25 was 5.1. The year-end projection was 282. Is that pretty close to where we are? And kind of explain to us, now we're going back to 4.3, how we came up with that methodology.
Yeah.
This is the Alliance Health that came to the board. They have fund balance that's on their books, so we're withholding that money. But we did have some cushion in there because we don't know what's going to be coming down from the state. From the federal, excuse me. Last year it was fully funded at 4.8 million, but I believe there should be a contract coming forth that came to the agenda session where we were going to work off the fund balance.
So we shouldn't see a similar pattern this year where we're budgeting for a lot higher amount than what we're actually looking to.
Right.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Adams.
And I thought it was important because you talked about the jewel settlement. People may not know what that was. If you could kind of elaborate, because that was a major settlement.
That is
You
for
know I'm in
for the kid, for the teenagers, to help with vaping education for the vaping. It's going off memory.
Commissioners, other questions on this?
Well, I didn't know if she was finished, but I do have a question.
Okay.
So, just want to make sure we capture everything. So when we do the, and I saw, and I'm not trying to get off topic, I'm just trying to get where we have the school health with the Board of Education. So when we talk about giving them an extra $2 million, do we include that in there? Do they see that as a picture of money that's going to them on top of whatever else we got?
That is reflected in the recommended budget. We break out what the school law enforcement, school resource officers, and traffic control officers, along with the school health nurses.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay. One thing, can we get a breakout of the health department general that you talked about at the beginning, so the doulas and the different things? We can get a breakout, drill down into that specific line. And that would be helpful just to have so we know what's there. And then a question on veteran services, growth of veterans, one of the largest communities with veteran populations in the state. What, Mr. Manager or whoever, talk me through what you heard from the department and why we settled there versus any increase in services or support.
In veteran services, I believe a philosophy needs to be changed where we can also go out there and do community engagement and not automatically be someone stationed and in the building. Instead of just adding a position, let's change our process. Everyone, take turns and going out there to certain sections of the county. It may be easier for a citizen to go somewhere closer than come all the way down here across from the courthouse, especially.
So was that a conversation with them in a direction on the process to change that? So for example, like when we were in Spring Lake at coffee this morning, their resource center sits vacant. We could have a VSO part of the time out there. So in other words, not expand, what you're recommending back to them is to change the process, say don't add people, but structure where you go?
Yes, and I'll say, outside of, I think, four positions that were added to the budget, the larger concern, and as I expressed to the leadership team, and I'll say now, is that there's so much uncertainty on a day-to-day basis, economically and policy-wise, that I'm concerned that I don't want to bring people on board for non-budget and then add to the payroll and then say, hey, based on maybe what happened, I gotta remove you off the payroll. So we'll have a conversation with some of the departments about how they can re-energize and look at their services and realign their services, like going out and going across the county. It's been my experience and other experiences that the Veteran Services officers were mobile and may have spent time in different areas in different days. And I think we need to investigate and investigate doing that first before we start adding positions in a particular place that's kind of, I would say, it's kind of small and doesn't really meet the needs. Again, I think we need to spend time out in the community in order to serve and go meet the veterans where they are.
So I guess my follow-up to that then is who is responsible for the efficiency? So you talked about some efficiencies. So they bring it forward, we don't do, and we recommend that back. So there has to be some ownership in whatever department area that handles the efficiencies of the department.
One of the things, and once the budget is approved, is that we'll have a leadership team meeting / retreat, and each department will have to develop a strategic business plan that aligns with the board's strategic goals and policies, and also has metrics and data, provides reports and metrics and data in which we can make these decisions moving forward. Again, I'm not saying we don't have a good mechanism at times to make decisions as far as KPIs. We serve this amount of veterans and I'm not picking on veterans, but I'm just using this as an example. We serve this many veterans at this location, currently for this purpose, where they're from, do we need to go out to that area? Those are the things that we move forward that department heads are going to have, because one of the things I believe is that the funding and the ability to address the needs of the citizens in this county, we will have to be mobile and nimble and go where the citizens are. You think about it, someone who lives out in Beaver Dam, depending on the weather on a particular day, that may be an hour drive into the county. So we got to find a mechanism in which we're going and deploying those services and evaluating how we deploy those services throughout the county at a particular time. And Veteran Services is one of those things.
So what I'm hearing from you then is, following the adopted budget, you're going to come back and each department is going to create a business plan that will have efficiencies, and then the leadership team is going to monitor those efficiencies.
Correct. Because again, having people stagnant in the office, we can't. And I'm not
disagreeing with you.
Yeah. And so
I just want to make sure if we talk about efficiencies, that we have a mechanism to put them in place, track them, and do the things that need to, so that there's a follow-through. Vice Chairman Jones?
Thank you. I have two comments in reference to veterans. I'm glad that you're all going to be doing that, because not just with veterans, but quite frank, we do need to start putting in some progressional methods to go to where people are. It's great. We need to help Hope Mills and Spring Lake, but at the end of the day, I hope that in this progress to decide what kind of position to be, that we will have some input, to be quite frank, from some veterans. I think that would be a great big key point on how they want to be served. Sometimes we make decisions for individuals that need services that aren't exactly in the way that they want the services. So just be mindful. I hope that we'll have a town hall or some type of input from the veterans that are in need of the service. Whether we decide to have case management people go to their house or whatever it may be, let's make sure we include their voice for the best services. And that's all I have to say on that line. And then I'd like to go up here to Community Transformation Grant and just talk a little bit about, give me some input on the progress of how we came about that for me, please.
The Community Transformation Grant, it had a 67.4% increase due to the incentives and the contracted services. And this is money that is being used from federal funds and also the Jewel settlement money that we received. And so we took the revenue, and because it's grant funds, we kind of make sure it balances, that we don't overspend. The revenues have to equal the expenses.
And is that money going to nonprofits, or can you just?
No.
It's just within internal?
Within the DSS, Health Department.
Health Department, just so, okay,
Right.
everyone will know exactly when you say community transmittal rights, it's going directly to the department. DSS, not public health, but Department of Social Services.
No, public health, I'm sorry.
Public health department, not DSS.
Yes, public
Okay.
health.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tyson.
Thank you. And I actually had a follow-up to the Chairman's Veteran Services comment. In our adopted 2025 budget, it's showing that the FTEs for that department have been at 8 since FY 2022. And so my broader question is, the FTEs, are those coming as a request at the departmental level? Have we done some sort of study to show, okay, this is the amount of FTEs that we need per department? And I know that we're talking specifically about veterans, but I think this is an overall kind of conversation and understanding that I would like to have, is how we're arriving at those numbers.
The personnel numbers?
The FTE numbers.
During the budget process, each department brings their departmental requests, and we evaluate them right there on the spot, and give them an answer whether they can have those positions or not, or we're going to fund those positions. With Veteran Services in particular, it goes back to the evaluation of what we need in the community and the services that we need to provide. And then with the new strategic initiatives and things of that nature, we're going to have to realign and evaluate that and see if we have those right size. Just like we did with the Sheriff's Department, we did with DSS and Veteran Services. We have to look at it and evaluate what's their true services and what data do we have with that. When we look at HR, one of my positions I transferred to HR because we evaluated that. We had key metrics on that. Same thing with Justice Services. And so as we move forward with individual departments over the next fiscal year, we'll make those determinations. So when we come back, we'll have data to say, okay, I'm going to bring this. We need 2 or 3 positions in Veteran Services. This is the reason why, and these are the key metrics why. Just like when we talk about animal services and animal control officers, again, that's one of those things where we know we have an issue, we know what the data is, but we can't get enough individuals because of the size and scope of what we're dealing with in that area. So again, we just need to keep the data and the metrics so we can actually fund being in particular departments and being able in particular areas. And that's one of my goals for moving forward, is that we make sure that we're able to address the people where they are instead of being in the office
And just as a follow-up for clarification on this, so so that everybody understands, for example, Veteran Services, they may have put in for 10 positions, for example. I'm not saying they did, but the FTEs were 8, and they've been 8, and so that is post the department's recommendation after the manager's review, correct?
Oh, yeah, yes. We, and not to belabor the point, but I go line by line. There's not a line that I haven't gone through by the time we get to this point. By the time we finish with all the departments, I've looked at every dollar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And just as a reminder, and we didn't go into it, but we will have a personnel and compensation issue kind of walkthrough where we're looking at the COLAs and the compensation adjustments, the benefit adjustment, as well as the staffing level. So we should be able to speak to FTEs, what was recommended, what was approved, that kind of byline. So that'll help us work through that piece of it. Vice Chairman Jones?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, it'll hit you if you got another question.
You ready to go home, huh?
Anyone else? All right.
Yes,
Go ahead and move
Commissioner
forward.
This concludes our presentation for the budget work session. We'll be happy to answer any additional questions.
You got a pass on your bus.
So we didn't prep to have a little further.
I didn't, but you know what? If you want to, we can. You can proceed on.
Let me just take a look at my notes here real quick. See what I did there.
When do we meet
So commissioners, first of all, I'll go ahead and let me just tell you where we're going. We can ask any additional questions or alibis from tonight. Make sure we get those questions, and then moving forward on the 5th, which is our next meeting, Thursday the 5th, which is also the public hearing, so we'll be moving downstairs. We're going to talk the education side and libraries, or actually we went through libraries tonight, part of it. So we'll talk libraries and education. So that's our opportunity to really talk about school boards' request and how it's been funded in this budget. And then we still have the CIP, the capital improvement side. We can talk debt at that time as well, if we want to clear that. I know that's normally done outside the budget cycle, but if we need to dip into that, we can. And then also looking at the special funds and the enterprise operations that we want to look at as well. We have community funding to look at, so I'd encourage commissioners, it's in the budget presentation, you know how our staff does it. So make sure that you're reviewing the community support, that's still an open item. And then the personnel and compensation that I spoke about. So those are, we'll tee those all up for the 7th. Hopefully we'll see how long the 5th, we'll see how long the public hearing is. And then we can circle back for any additional issues, or if there's commissioners want any scenarios driven. So if we want to look at tax rate scenarios, different funding scenarios, we'll begin to, what I'd like to do is at our next meeting, have those at the end, so that at the following meeting, we can run any of those scenarios as well as any feedback we get from the public hearing that we can look at that next meeting. So that would be 3 meetings is kind of what I'm hopefully shooting for, which gives us one more just in case we need it.
You planning for 4 more meetings?
I am planning for 3 total if we need it.
3 total, okay.
Yes, ma'am. So we will do, the next one would be the 5th, which will be the public hearing, and then we're going to move through the items I just talked about. And then we will come back on the 10th and answer any questions or any scenarios that we may have, and then have any deliberation that we need to have, and then set a time that we can come back, hopefully approve the budget, post that.
You're also going to remind us not to stir up anything.
That's your job, ma'am.
My job.
I can't make no promises.
But we need to be together. You know what I'm talking about.
And then the last thing we'll also do is we'll walk through in that last meeting to make sure we've kind of walked through the amendment process and how the actual budget approval process will happen. We got a long way, we got a ways to go before we get there, but we do have new board members. I want to walk through that process to make sure we all understand that. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 questions. Are we going to discuss more? Did we not finish the library system funding?
That's
Or is
next.
it-
No, but if you want to, we can. I'm at your pleasure.
I mean, that's okay. I mean, I'm sure.
We had it with education and library, unless there's something else we wanted to go into on the library side.
Let's just do it when we do education and library.
Okay. And then a question about education. I mean, I don't know if you all want me to bring it up or not since it's under budget, but I do have some concerns and feel like it's been on pause a long time. Is that the appropriate time for me to yes or no to discuss some money about E. Smith? I mean, I just want to know when did you?
So at that next meeting, we're going to cover it. We're going to cover that budget. We're going to cover the education side, and then when we get to the capital plan, that would be under the capital and the debt service side.
Okay, so it's capital and debt when we talk about education on Monday. So is that going to come up then so that I can talk about E. Smith then in open public, or that's what I'm trying to figure out? When will that be on the agenda that I can appropriately discuss that if that's what I want to discuss?
I think that would be under the capital improvement side, when we talk capital improvement and debt servicing. The education we're going to talk the education, the $111 million that was requested. We also got a letter today asking us to raise the tax rate to cover the difference.
Well, so I'm sorry, let me cut you off, but so don't be confused. Wait a minute, I'm not finished. If this is education, just someone help me understand, why would that not fall underneath that since it's for funding of a school?
Because it's going to be.
it'll be under the capital side. It'll be under the capital investment. So what we're going to look at on the school side is kind of the day-to-day operational side.
Currently spent.
Yeah, right, the kind of the current operations of the existing schools. And we move to the capital, we'll start talking about the investments from the debt servicing that leads to the capital improvement.
Okay, and so what meeting will that be?
That'll, hopefully, the next meeting is the goal. We'll hit education, library, and try to move to the capital, get through the personnel, and hopefully community support.
Well, I'll just make that statement at that meeting to inform people that E. Smith will be discussed at the capital meeting. And I just want to, I'm going to be honest, y'all know I like to be transparent. The community's been asking a lot about it, and I like to be transparent so I can inform people, because they might have got confused too. Because when we say education, some people might feel like that's where it's going to be discussed, and since it won't, I'll just make it an effort point to inform them that at the next meeting it will be discussed.
Commissioner Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One request that I would have, and I know we kind of touched on this when we talked about the sheriff, but kind of in general, when we get to the personnel section, in addition to just the FTEs or the total positions funded, if we can have that historical data of those attrition rates, it's good to know what we budget in terms of total positions, but then how much are we actually on a fiscal year basis actually filling? And so I'd like to ask that we have that information, whether it's provided to us before or during that portion of the presentation, just so.
How far back do you have? I have it until 2017 when I came up on this floor and I started tracking.
I think 2 years would be sufficient for me unless somebody else has a.
Good. Is that all right, Michelle?
Yes.
2 years, and I generally say that we probably, I would say give it a 5 year. The reason being is you'll see that probably you'll see a trend that after COVID that we wasn't able to get officers. And I just say you can see if you had a 5 year trend, 4 to 5 year trend, that would be better for you. Yeah.
I will prepare for I'll show the 5 year.
And that'll be, just for clarification, for total personnel, not just for the sheriff's office, correct?
It will have every department.
Thank you.
I have a cube build or pivot table.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else? Okay, so let me just recap before I need the attorney to do one other thing before we close out tonight. So as we move into the next meeting on the 5th at 7 p.m., that'll be our budget hearing. So we'll be downstairs. So following the budget hearing, then we will move into the budget work session, and we will cover education and any follow-up on the libraries. We'll begin to talk about the capital improvement plan. We'll talk about the personnel as outlined by Commissioner Tyson, and just in general, the compensation, the benefits, staffing levels. We'll talk, hopefully we can get to it all. We'll talk special funds and enterprise operations, and then we'll talk community funding, which we'll try to talk community funding last. Everybody tracking that? So if we get through all that, then we can come back on the 10th and have any further dialogue with scenarios. Also, at the 5th meeting, if you have some scenarios, you can bring those at the end of the meeting and let the staff begin to work those. Commissioner Adams?
Mr. Chairman, can you just email that to
I will.
us so that way we know what we're talking about? So
I wanted to cover it here.
Yeah, I understand, but that makes it easier for us to know what we.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to keep it organized. And the clerk will put it in an agenda, and she'll send that out as well, so we'll have it. Okay, Vice Chairman
I
Jones.
just have one more question then. So I know you stated that we'll be discussing the work session. So will we have another public budget meeting in this order? Then I know you're going to email it, but so I don't get confused, because I noticed you stated that the E. Smith will be discussed about capital funding, which will be in a work session, which is mostly like this, where the public aren't there. So I guess that's my concern. Will we have opportunity, a public budget meeting where I can discuss E. Smith?
So
What meeting will that be on? Because you said we have 3 meetings.
on June 5th is our next meeting.
Right.
That'll be the budget public hearing. So we'll meet our statute requirement to have a budget hearing.
Right.
We'll do that. Once we finish the public hearing, then we'll stay downstairs in 118, and we'll move to the same, where we'll
go through the items that I just talked about, or we'll come up here. We'll come up here. We'll come up here. We'll come up here, it's easier. So we'll come up here and we'll go through those items. It will still be live streamed, but we'll do the budget work session, or excuse me, the public hearing downstairs. It's where the public has an opportunity to come in. So if you want to encourage people to come talk about their priorities, they can come talk about their priorities, or the issues that they have. And then we'll move to the work session and go through as much of what I've talked about as we can. Hopefully we can move through that, and it'll be a longer meeting probably, so it'll probably be at least 2 hours depending on how many people sign up for public hearing, and we'll get it. We have one so far, but I'm sure we'll have more. Does that clarify?
I mean, I understood about the 5th, but remember when I was talking about I don't want to confuse it because I'm not, when I was stating that I want to talk about East Smith, I guess what I'm saying is I want to talk about that in public. You said June 5th, we will not be discussing East Smith. I comprehend and understand that. You stated that the capital funding meeting, which is the next meeting, which I presume is supposed to be a work session meeting, correct?
Yes.
Meaning just like this,
Yes.
public's not going to be in there.
It'll be the 5th. It's streamed live.
I mean, it'll be streamed, but you all know what I mean.
They can come.
I mean, but they don't get to sign up and speak like they do on the one on the 5th.
The public hearing is when the public can speak. So
Right,
They
on
have
the
one
5th.
on the 5th. They have
But
one
that's not the one we're
Yes,
discussing
ma'am.
in East Smith though, right?
Yes, ma'am. So on the 5th, there's we'll have kind of two parallel meetings.
Okay.
We'll go downstairs at 7 p.m.
Right.
and we will do the public hearing. That's the
Right.
opportunity for public to come speak. Then we'll break and we'll come upstairs and we'll do this type of
Right.
scenario where we will cover CIP, the capital, the education, personnel, all the items that I covered. Community funding.
Keeping it as professional as we can. Some people have,
Yeah, capital funding, that's what I'm saying, not community funding, but capital funding. But I guess I'm confused because I thought you said capital funding was not going to be discussed
Yes, it is.
on the 5th. It was going to be discussed at the next meeting.
No,
So it will be discussed on the 5th, capital funding, not community funding.
correct. Community funding will be as well. My hope is that we can move through the rest of the items in the next meeting, and that will allow the third meeting for us to have any discussion around what we need to adjust, and let the staff come back with different scenarios or any adjustments that we provide to them on the 5th. So the 5th will probably be hopefully will be our longest meeting as we work through the remaining items. All right, any other questions from the board? I'm sorry if I was confusing, but we'll lay down an agenda and make sure everybody has it. We're basically the next meeting, we're going to cover the rest of the items that are contained in the budget, or the items we need to discuss, and we're going to do the public hearing, and then we'll have our hopefully on the 10th after that, on June 10th. Mr. Attorney, if you can just cover, I just wanted you to review kind of the ethics side of this as we start getting into, once we move forward for budget approval and voting because of people being on different boards and those types of things.
Correct. And it's particularly important this year because this is the largest number in the budget that we've ever had. I'm talking about the ARP freed up funding of the last batch of nonprofits. There's a statute that makes it a criminal offense for a county commissioner who serves as a director, officer, or governing board member of a nonprofit to participate in making or administering a contract for that nonprofit. Making or administering includes deliberating, talking about it, and specifically voting on it, or attempting to influence in your board members to vote for it. So the way we've handled, and we have to do this now every year since this statute came out, if any of you are in one of those positions, a director, an officer, and they also say governing board member, but typically a board of directors is a governing board member of a nonprofit, but those are three statutory terms. Of any one of the contracts that's in the ARP funding or on the list of community funding, please let either me or Andrea know as soon as possible, and so that we can make appropriate arrangements for the way the budget will be handled. That if it's only one, it doesn't matter how many of you, if there's any of you, we will take those contracts and those funds out of the budget, and so that you can vote on the rest of the budget, and then those will be handled separately as a separate budget item for which you cannot vote.
So I guess I have a question.
Go ahead, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in reference to when they say, like, for instance, I'll just put myself out there, I'm on the JCPC board. However, when they state officers, I would presume, aren't they talking about officers meaning chairman? Like, I'm on the JCPC board, but of course, I'm not serving as a chair or a vice chair. So is that what that statute means, that you cannot vote if you're serving as a chair for one of those boards or executive member of one of those boards? I mean, help me understand that.
A member of the board, of the governing board, or an officer, you could be both, or you could be an officer without being a board member. So that's what it is. But are you appointed to that as a county commissioner?
Yes.
Then you're okay. You're okay.
Right, that's why I said I wanted to be clear on that. And then Heather, would be okay to vote also. We're both on that board, so that's what I meant. As long as we're not an executive member, we can still vote, correct?
Yeah, if your appointment is by the board of commissioners to a board, and you're serving as a county commissioner serving on that board, it's not a conflict.
Okay, great.
That's just considered part of your commissioner duties.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know. Do you,
Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Rick, and you kind of touched on this, but, so like, with the hospital, it's a nonprofit. And we're sitting on the board as part of our county commissioner office, but we're technically a board of trustee member. So can you provide some clarification? When you're elected county commissioner, you automatically go on that board. That's not a choice. And then any liaison appointments as well. So like, for example, I'm the ASOM liaison. With that, you would not vote, you would not really be participating in the governance of that board as a liaison. Okay.
So for example, Action Pathway. Commissioner Adams used to be Action Pathway on that board, separate from, for example, I think, no, you were...
I'm a commissioner.
Yeah, you were commissioner.
I'm a commissioner.
So if you, maybe then Fable Tech, or excuse me, FSU.
Right.
So if there was, Commissioner Adams is a trustee on Fable State's board, he's a trustee. If we were funding Fable State for something, we would have to make that exception, and that would be an example of...
That would be an example, yes.
Didn't mean to use Commissioner Adams as an example, but it's the first one I think off the top of my head.
It's okay.
It's the first one I think off the top of my head.
That's fine.
I don't know if any of you are in this position. If you have a question about it, whether it might apply to you, call me, okay? Just make sure we do it right.
And clarify, it's just the sitting board members?
Yes, just sitting board members, yes.
Any questions on that? I just want to make sure we covered that and everybody heard it.
I just want to make sure that we don't get so full of ourselves that we start an argument with some of the, okay, we need to stay away from that.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you all remember going down to Grays Creek? Well, no.
I do,
Okay.
You and me.
Yeah, all right. We had to be careful.
and Jim Martin. And Brady Black.
Commissioners, I'd ask you if there's any other items for business.
Motion to adjourn, Mr.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
We've got a motion on the table to adjourn. It's been seconded. Discussion? Hearing
There was no
none.
motion.
Raise your right hand. Positive.
Unanimous?
And we're adjourned.